Welcome to EPF. We continue our line of contact programs, and today we will be talking about Armenian-Turkey relations and the normalization of Armenian-Turkey relations. And my guest is Emel Kurma, General Coordinator of Helsinki Citizens Assembly in Istanbul. Welcome, Emel.
Hello, Marta. Thank you.
I want to start with a general overview of a human rights situation in Turkey and ask you about the stance of the human rights issues in Turkey, whether it has deteriorated, it has improved in comparison with the last 5-10 years. There are some reports, especially from human rights groups like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, that say that the situation has deteriorated, and they bring concrete examples in what regard. I just want to ask you as well, what do you think about the general overview of human rights situation in Turkey?
Let's say two ways to look into a glass, as always, and this is our general motto in Turkey. Is it half full, half empty? Not only our fellow friends from international human rights groups, but also organizations predominantly working in Turkey, human rights groups or rights-based advocacy groups, have been denoting increasingly deterioration in human rights condition in general. One reason is the concept of rights and freedoms have expanded into our daily life experiences, not only the right to be, not to be subjected to torture, the right to live, whatever, we have an expansion and proliferation of rights. You can't differentiate them from maybe socioeconomic rights whatsoever. Now, there are very open ways to suppress, let's say, rights and freedoms, and then there are open and brute ways. Then there are very manipulative, very sophisticated ways to do that. And I think in time, the combination fluctuates in a way. Frankly speaking, recently, we are not much happy with the developments or the trend. The trend was up until, let's say, 2007, 8, 9, maybe, not so much, was on a positive trend. And it has been going on a negative trend for the last couple of years. Also, and this is the full side of the thing, because the recognition, ownership, demand of rights have expanded, as I said, to other issues, like you don't want the creek or the forest or whatsoever, or a city park to be demolished by just an authoritarian top-down decision. People want to be involved in the decision-making process. This is the good part of it. There's, I think, openly or discreetly, a wider adoption and demand of rights. And they're not just their normative talk, but their actual implementation, their actual exercise. People want to enjoy and exercise these rights. There's increase in tolerance and suppression of critique, of dissent, not only of pure opposition, but also, I mean, like it's escalating in that sense. It's not improving. And let's say ill treatment and torture is morphing in the sense it's now happening in under other cloaks or in different spaces. It's not happening, say, in the police station as much as it used to be. It's happening on the road to the police station or in the bus where the citizens who are demonstrating or in a rally are pulled into. So.
Are we talking about Istanbul and the western part of Turkey, or it's general? We can say this is the condition in Turkey in terms of people standing for their rights, going for demonstrations, demanding also their rights?
With the Kurdish movement, Kurdish political movement and Kurdish liberation movement, it has always been there. Let's say the rather better off economically. Those that felt they were the genuine kids of the state. And this is the problematic relation of citizens and state. So there were some bad kids, naughty kids, and they deserved whatever treatment they got from authorities. Now, what is surprising is that the rather white, accepted, eligible citizens also faced with that I mean, after the Kurds and the, let's say, political Islamist groups, now it's also the better off and eligible citizens who also received that treatment. So it's a shock. In the meanwhile, I think it's also, as I said, a sign of maturation. This crisis is not happening because rights, the understanding of rights is shrinking. It's on the contrary. This is why, according to some arguments, male violence in Turkey is increasing because women are increasingly defending their ground, defending their rights and saying no.
And recently we witnessed one occasion of this.
Since that occasion, there has been at least, if I'm not wrong, since beginning of February, if I'm not wrong, there has been at least 25, maybe today, maybe it's 30 cases.
You mentioned also about the Kurdish issue.
Yes.
In the recent development in this regard is that the Turkish government decided to start a communication and negotiation with the PKK and Kurdish groups who were fighting for the last 30 plus years. And also from the Kurdish side, there was a willingness, and Öcalan made a statement about the engaging in negotiations. Do you think this is a sincere step on both sides to end the violence and change the situation in terms of the Kurdish issue in Turkey, or it's another cycle of just stopping the escalation, and then you never know what will happen in near future?
I think there is a sincere, open, genuine need and understanding that peace is more livable than armed conflict. However, it's not like that the government decided one day to be benevolent and open up a resolution process. The current government made successive attempts to take a step, but then they all recoiled back somehow due to apparently some assessment of political gains and losses, whatever. And of course, government is not the only actor. The major actor is the Kurdish political movement, which is very diversified, increasingly diversified, which shows its strength in a way. However, of course, the pioneering and the pivotal group is the PKK and KCK and Öcalan as the leader of this rather organized, central and most visible group as the contender. Now, what happened is, of course, the parties have been taking steps to somehow reconcile. But the reconciliation is, of course, is another matter, because most of these rights that have been denied to citizens of Kurdish ethnic linguistic identity should be recognized, whether or not the armed conflict with PKK ends or not. This is the ethical problem in this thing. However, the most recent resolution attempt and process, which according to some people remained only as a lengthy ceasefire, and even that is most welcome by everybody. So we're not having everyday killings and losses of life and injuries. The thing is, of course, this implies a huge change in the established balance of things, the balance of war, the balance of battle. And this disturbs a lot of that sort of accustomed expectations in a way. There's a challenge in that. The second is the expectations in society increase so high, the pace and the level of whatever comes out of this resolution process does not immediately address the level of expectations, and this is, I think, not peculiar and particular to the case in Turkey. It has been elsewhere in the other conflict places. However, I remain hopeful, since there has been this discussion going on in Turkey, and your question pointed out to that, and I think it's going to. Are they sincere? Mm-hmm. I think in a political game, this is not so relevant in a way. I mean, it would be great if all political actors would be doing the sincerity thing. But political interactions is something else. And so you do what you do with several motivations, some of which would be, of course, unacceptable, but you do it so that you gain support, you expand your constituency, whatever, so on. Everybody gains from peace. This is obvious. The current phase is not yet building peace, it's the resolution process. And final note, the Kurdish movement, so everybody's checking sincerity of PKK. Are they going to come up to with a fine thing? What have they given? Are they latently supporting the presidency system, which everybody, a great majority of people in Turkey are opposed to? Have they given in change of that? The issue is, it's important to understand, and this is what we have as challenge of society and of different groups, that negotiation is not necessarily cooperation. So are you cooperating, are you collaborating with that party or that party? In some ways, yes, but it's actually a negotiation process. And we may see more articulate steps towards the election to gain more points on the part of.
And maybe it has to do also some sort of with geopolitics, with Islamic State next door, with the situation in Syria, that the Turkish government wants to finally deal with one of the oldest issues inside the country, not to feel the burden also from the inside in terms of the developments and their own fate in politics. Or you don't see any geopolitical issue there?
Obviously there are geopolitical issues there that they probably are considering, but I think Turkey's state has its own peculiar raison d'etre. It will go ahead to do some very irrational things, not to make any concessions on its own irrational framework, if I may say so.
Yes.
I mean, just to keep the nose up high, can do very, very, I would call not only irrational, but maybe not acceptable things. The thing is, of course, to at least clear the home grounds vis-a-vis different threats and dangers and risks outside. It would have been different. They would have then not be so, AKP's and current president's anger, or I don't know, hostility towards Kobane was incomprehensible. For years, Turkey's state/government always was very hilariously against the formation of a Kurdish autonomous government in north of Iraq, in Iraqi Kurdistan. And it happened, and now they're doing a lot of business with that thing. So it's okay. Now they say, oh, no, this is our red lines. No Kurdish cantons in northern Syria.
Right.
Because another step would mean, okay, that is the deal now about the formula of the demand for autonomy of Turkey's Kurdistan region. So
you mentioned about irrationality or unacceptable moves that sometimes the government does. One of these kind of moves in Armenia was perceived the call of the Turkish president to commemorate the Gallipoli centenary on April 24th. And in Armenia, it was perceived very negatively because, as you know, and many people do, April 24th is a centennial anniversary of Armenian Genocide. Do you think this is just again a game that the Turkish government plays, or just to kind of shift the attention, or there is also something else in terms of arranging this commemoration on April 24th? So they don't consider any future possible normalization of relations with Armenia on political level, or it is just waiting until April 24th this year passes and then start a new chapter in Armenia-Turkey relations? We'll
see if they keep commemorating the Dardanelles battles, whatever, on the 25th from now on. We will see if this is an on and off or just for this year's sake. This has not been, it's not categorically surprising to me that they would like to suppress the centennial of the genocide with overlapping, trying to overshadow it with the commemorative day for the Dardanelles war. Up until now, it had been celebrated or remembered or commemorated on the 18th of April. Now it's the 25th.
24th.
24th, actually, yeah. This is not a jump. This is not a categorical deviation from Turkey's state mind. And I think it has failed already. I think it hasn't been taken seriously. And it was even, I wouldn't say ridiculed, but it was really, I mean, everybody's sort of looking, what a vain attempt this has been. So it actually belittles the one who takes this step. But I understand in many ways, I think the Turkey's ignorance and then denial policy has added insult to injury. And this is the worst thing you can add to a crime, I think.
And how about using the word of genocide in current Turkey? Because years ago it was considered as a criminal act, and I think this Article 301 in the Penal Code is still there, but people use this word, those who understand, recognize and admit, they start using this word, and haven't been much talk about them being persecuted or being put in jail, etc., etc. So there is a change in terms of using even the word of genocide, and stories and lectures and communications in universities, etc. It has been openly used. So do you think this has to do with some causes, some reasons for this, or is just Turkey decided to give in to this?
I think it's not, I don't know, a state gives in once society takes strong steps, and without a sort of a central thinking spot, the overall general discourse in Turkey had already gone beyond the necessity to add the prefix so-called. And for reference, 301 does not refer particularly to you have to use this prefix before if you ever refer to the genocide. It is about this strange notion of insulting Turkishness or Turkish state.
Yeah.
Turkish state and Turkishness, which is a construct in itself anyway. So the thing, it has been, up until maybe a few years back, it has been 2 steps forward, 1 step back in whether we use it or not, this so-called genocide phrase. And I remember 2005 maybe, you would hear in the mainstream channels, you would hear hesitant and whatever, like uttering of genocide without the prefix, whatever. Never, of course, in the public state channel, they have to stick to the, if they ever mention it, they have to stick to it. But in all the privately owned media, it evaporated gradually from its following word, the keyword.
And today
genocide.
they can.
And then it was, for a while it came back. I can't remember in what context. Maybe it was, escalation of,
maybe
again,
after protocols discourse. Or...
Might be. I remember it came back very briefly, but then it's evaporated. And nowadays you can, in the publications you can see it. And it's a very commonly used word.
And nobody is being persecuted for using...
As far as I know, no. There's still a great number of, or a great tendency, a great volume of people or writers or whatever to refer to it as the incidents of 1915. However, like a well-established conservative right-wing liberal journalist or columnist, he produced this documentary. In the meanwhile, of course, this 1904 and 1915 are the turmoil years. So there's definitely the Balkan War, which is they're going to bring in the Sarıkamış battle, whatever. Of course, these are all battlefields. These are all ongoing wars, which is a horrendous thing. But all these lives lost are lost in fighting, whereas the genocide is totally a huge, cold-blooded, state-sponsored or state-driven ethnic cleansing.
Will you be here in Armenia on April 34th? Or?
I may be, if I can be in both places. I don't know where to be the most, because the immediate issue I live and I can have effect on is not to probably convince anyone in Armenia. So there's a plan to come to Yerevan on the same day, go back to Istanbul on the same day, but I feel like I would express myself better to my fellow citizens if I was standing in Taksim Square.
And I know also that you have been engaged in different initiatives of normalization of Armenia-Turkey relations on civil society level. You as a person and also Helsinki Citizen Assembly. Can you tell us a little bit more about the initiative of Yavaş Kamaz, for instance, when you bring teachers together? What's the reason and purpose of doing these kind of activities?
Yavaş Kamaz, the name I can proudly say. I called up Hrant one day, Hrant Dink, when we were getting ready. We wanted to find a name for this school, so I asked him, how do you say slowly in Armenian? So he told me Gamaz, Gamaz. Oh, this is Yavaş, Yavaş, Gamaz. So we did the name together, and I mean, it's always his face is behind us whenever we mention Yavaş Gamaz. Our major issue is authoritarian relations, or interpersonal, intercommunal, interactor relations, where one party uses force illegitimately, domination, whatever, over the other. This is the gist of the matter. In our daily lives, this is the matter. So we've been very much thinking about where we can be helpful the most. We know that as a group, as an organization, or our HCA is an organization as an open group, say, we most enjoy learning. We most are curious about curiosity. So we were thinking, the whole idea is of any conflict that rises in a society, let's say the healthier or the most peaceful way is to have it freely expressed. The stakeholders think about it and find a solution where no one is being sort of suppressed at the expense of the other winning. So we've been thinking, with all the countless of fault lines in Turkey increased by the inability to attend and handle a conflict in a proper, sincere, in a multi-party way, it runs through Kurdish-Turkish conflict. Used to be Kurdish movement against the Turkish state conflict, but now, after 35 years of armed opposition or conflict or whatever, it is now an animosity, open or latent, between the Kurdish and so-called Turkish groups. The second is secular Islamic, so to speak. And this is not only happening at the high level of state, it happens in daily life. So we were thinking one way where the education systems we're not so hopeful of, but the relation between teacher and student and the relations between students very much are where we are also learning to have authority relations apart from our family. So in most of the cases, the education system, the pedagogy in Turkey is like teacher is the state. The omnipotent knows everything, decides everything, whatever, even with the changing pedagogical thing. And the students are the citizens. They don't know how to be in solidarity with each other. They ask everything, every orientation, whatever. They can't realize, they can't find their own solutions, whatever. So we were thinking, if we can work with teachers on any of these sort of issues that eclipse our coexistence.
How is it related to Armenia-Turkey rapprochement, or teachers from Armenia and Turkey participating in similar event?
Turkey-Armenia normalization initiative is so relevant for Turkey's internal peace as well. So it's not only between Turkey, Armenia as countries. This is imperative for Turkey's society to heal. So it is also Turkish and Armenian citizens of Turkey. It is so much reflected. As between two countries, it's between two societies. So this is why we thought, with the escalation, particularly expected escalation towards 2015, we were saying, there will be an increase in probably polarizing, whatever language, and the kids might be watching a lot of horrendous stuff will be subjected to a lot of propaganda. If they have some teachers that can escort them, that can back them up to express their fears or even their prejudices within the classroom environment, and just facilitate them to express them, to deconstruct these.
But this will be with a very small group of children and students.
This
and
is why we
teachers.
call it Yavaş Gamat. It's going to take ages.
Slowly.
We just want to provide some inspiration and some ideas. We won't be able to teach anybody anything, but we just want to introduce and promote a mode of practice in the classroom environment, in the school environment. It's improving professional skills, personal skills, but also improving level of information about the homeland of Armenians, which corresponds to modern Turkey after all. And it's important for people of Turkey to understand what has happened whatsoever without any preaching mode. It's important if people explore things, are allowed to explore knowledge, I think then they can mature.
And when we are speaking about normalization, it's just the beginning, and there is also the reconciliation part. We should follow some processes that have been developed, that are being developed at this stage, even without no official relations with.
Exactly. To some extent, we can say, I think, its normalization is not just starting. It has started between communities, between societies, and it will lead up to a ground upon which the political leaders or the political representatives will need to take steps. They already do. They need to take these, but I mean, maybe building some ground to pull and push for the normalization, also to proceed on the official level, and this is imperative. And I think, as citizens of both countries, we have the absolute legitimate demand that they should sit together face to face, be it arguments, be it whatever, at least to keep the contact on a regular level, open the border, have diplomatic missions, fight all the fight you want afterwards, but at least life will be easier for citizens of Armenia and Turkey, and to come and visit each other, to pass to the other country, whatever, it will be much more easier.
Thank you very much. Very interesting discussion.
I hope so.
Thank you for watching EPF's Line of Contact. We will see each other next time.